Tonight, Donald Trump could be facing an electoral blowout. We're going to dig into the numbers and also into Trump's claims that the whole thing is just rigged against him. But the question is this race over with more than 2 weeks left to go? Then Hillary Clinton looks past the White House and towards Capitol Hill. Can she and her backers paint all Republicans with the Trump brush? And can Democrats win the Senate or even the House? And is Trump now risking a total division within his own party? And later, Bridget Kelly, she of the Time for Traffic Problems in Fort Lee message with a message for Governor Bridgegate today. Chris Christie knew about the plan for political payback before it happened and during. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman in tonight for Richard French, and we begin tonight where else but with the race for the White House, where the end of the road is finally in sight. If you've wondered, as many have, will this election ever end? It will in just 15 days, which means Election Day is just 2 weeks from tomorrow. And if you've tuned out of the race or been away from the hustle and bustle of the campaign for a couple of weeks, let's say to get married or something, we're going to reset the race as best we can and tell you where things stand. First up, the big new poll making headlines today, a tracking poll from ABC. It has Hillary Clinton up 12 points over Donald Trump in a four-way race. She's at 50, he's at 38. Now, this poll shows a lead slightly larger than the averages that we've seen. Real Clear Politics poll average has Clinton up about 6. Although the lead might be a little bit wider than that. There are a few outlying polls that are keeping Clinton's lead to just 6 points. But the election forecasters might tell the real story of just how lopsided this presidential race feels right now. Clinton is an 86% favorite, according to 538. She's a 92% favorite, according to the New York Times, and a 90% favorite based on the bettors in the PredictWise betting market. So Clinton is leading in the popular vote nationally, but what about the Electoral College? Well, Trump would need to pick off a slew of swing states to win the election on November 8th, and he's losing in almost all of them. Florida, Clinton is up 4. Ohio, the race is tied. Pennsylvania, Clinton is up 6. North Carolina, Hillary is up 2.5 points. Let's keep going. Iowa, Trump has a 4-point lead, but that lead is falling. Nevada, Clinton is up 4. Colorado and Virginia all but out of reach for Trump as he trails by 7 and 8 points respectively. Even states that should be out of reach for Clinton are very, very winnable. Arizona, Clinton has a lead of a little more than a point. Georgia, Trump has a lead of 4 points. That's a larger lead than Trump has in Texas, where Clinton trails by only 3. And Trump is in trouble in Utah, where third-party candidate Evan McMullin trails by just 1 with Clinton behind him. Again, that's Utah, the home of Dick Cheney, and Trump may not win it. Given those numbers, it may not be surprising that the focus on the campaign trail today seemed just as centered on the races for Congress as on the presidential race. Here's ABC's Maggie Rulli with the latest.
The campaigns are out fighting in full force today. The Clinton camp leaning on friend Senator Elizabeth Warren to go after Donald Trump.
On November 8th, we nasty women are going to march our nasty feet to cast our nasty votes to get you out of our lives forever.
She gets under his thin skin like nobody else.
A confident Clinton building up other Democrats, like New Hampshire Governor Maggie Hassan, who's in a neck-and-neck race with current Republican Kelly Ayotte for a seat in the Senate.
What I love about Maggie is that she's independent. She knows how to find common ground and how to stand her ground.
Working to secure her presidency and a Democratic Congress while she's at it. Meanwhile, Trump is working to get back votes in the must-win state of Florida, promising farmers in the state that if elected, he'll drastically cut red tape.
EPA is a disaster. Regulations are a disaster. The farmers are going to be able to get back to the business that they're supposed to be in, not a business of filling out paperwork all day.
He continues to bash the polls and the media. The latest ABC News tracking poll has him trailing Clinton by double digits, but he says despite these numbers, he's anything but down and out.
Just in case you haven't heard, we're winning, not only Florida, but we're going to win the whole thing.
Also, while in Florida, Trump laid out his plans for Cuba, saying he wants a tougher agreement, one that may even put off those newly reestablished diplomatic relations. Maggie Rulli, ABC News, Washington.
Let's get some analysis now from our panel. Jonathan Yedden is with us. He is the president of Power Play Strategies. That's a Democratic political consulting firm. Welcome back. Next to him, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. And on the other side of the table, Giancarlo Parasuti. He is a former aide to President George H.W. Bush. And I'll start with the obvious. How over is this race? It's over, right? Anybody? It's over.
Absolutely.
This would be the biggest political upset of all time if Donald Trump somehow managed to win this thing.
Not going to happen. And by the way, congratulations. You just got married.
Thank you very much. But back to the election. No, seriously, this would be...
I think your marriage is more interesting than the election is.
Well, we have a couple of segments on the election, so
okay.
This would be bigger than Dewey defeats Truman and that mistake at the last... I mean, this is unprecedented, Jonathan.
Absolutely,
right?
it's unprecedented. Do I think Donald Trump is going to outperform the 38, 39%? I do. I definitely think there are people out there that are embarrassed yet don't like Hillary, or they are just not Democrats. They're Republicans or they're conservatives. And so they're going to vote for him, although they're not out and out in terms of like, rah-rah about supporting the Republican nominee. And so I think Trump is going to get like 42, 43%. Nationally. I think the question, though, turns to these swing states. It turns to the U.S. Senate and the control over the U.S. Senate. Obviously, I've been in a lot of campaigns. We all have. I mean, you never stop going. You run through the finish line. There's no doubt with the amount of money spent, with the amount of people on the ground, and the stakes so high, the Supreme Court, the control of the U.S. Senate, there's no doubt that Hillary, along with these U.S. Senate campaigns and the super PACs associated, are going to go straight through the finish line.
And we'll focus in on the Senate in our next segment, but...
I absolutely agree with what Jonathan said, but in a bit of a perverse dynamic here. I think if you're a Republican, you want a wider margin of defeat in terms of the future of the party, as far as the future of the party is concerned, than a narrow one. Because a narrow victory by Hillary Clinton opens up the entire Pandora's box of if only. If only the establishment had done more. If only more quote-unquote loyal Republicans had embraced and supported Donald Trump, perhaps this race would be winnable.
That sounds a little bit like what Tea Party members might have been saying a few years ago. Well, if we can't get this party to be as ideologically conservative as we want it to be, let's burn the whole thing down. You're speaking from almost an establishment standpoint, saying we got to get rid of Trump before he infects the party.
It's a delicate dance, because obviously the larger the spread, that's when Senate seats that you didn't expect to fall might. That's when a larger margin in the House, creeping up to that magic number of, I think it's 30 seats that the Democrats would need to reclaim a majority
in the House.
We don't want any of that to occur. But the other side of the coin is, again, a close race begs the question, was there more we could have or should have done to actually push this guy over the finish line?
Do you have a line in your mind as to what the separation needs to be?
No, I mean, 8 points is typically what you hear in terms of when a wave starts to crest and wash over the shore. So I think anything south of that is cause for concern for many Republicans in terms of putting Humpty Dumpty back together again on November 9th.
Dominic, is there anything that Donald Trump can do in the last 15 days of this campaign other than just hope that Hillary Clinton implodes?
There's a lot he can do. He can go out gracefully. That's all he can do at this point. He can show...
Is there anything else he can do?
He can show some dignity and class in terms of stop trying to force down voter turnout. But I'm amazed at your response, and I appreciate you being honest. Listen to what we're hearing. Republicans are saying we want him to lose badly, so it sends a mandate. And so Hillary Clinton is out there campaigning like this is a wave election. She's got a shot at it. The only thing that could change the dynamics, and they can't even change the dynamics greatly, is WikiLeaks in terms of what may come out on a daily basis up until Election Day. I don't even think that will have an impact.
Look, the bottom line here is Donald Trump's going to lose. And the question that all Republicans have to ask themselves is, how do we pull this party back together on November 9th? And my point is, if the margin of defeat is large, that at least gives credence to one side of the House. It happens to be my side of the House in terms of an argument. But if that margin of defeat is small, let's say it's smaller than any of us predict at this point, which frankly could in fact occur, if that whole kind of secret Trump vote, no, I don't want to admit that I'm supporting him, but I'm going to, if they all come out, and if that in fact is the case, the Republican Party will have a huge problem on its hands on November 9th.
Here's what's scary, though. Trump obviously got here without the support of the establishment, and he hasn't really gotten much of the support of the establishment to this point. I mean, if he loses and if he's going to deflect blame on others, given the amount of money he has, given the fact that he's playing with house money basically this entire campaign season, what does he do next, and how does that affect the future of the Republican Party? Because there's no doubt he's got people that love him. I mean, and
well, but I think. Sorry.
No, that's but you're talking about Trump and a potential loss as sort of being almost based on ideological standpoints. That we have to repudiate this form of Republican candidacy. I'm not sure how much of it is what Trump believes, or Jonathan, how much of it is based on Trump's personality himself. That he has just cast himself as an unelectable figure, so that even if Hillary, falls apart in the last run, that's not. It's more about Trump than it's about what Trump stands for, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's what's accelerated his decline. I think there's no doubt that ideologically he falls in line with a lot of what politicians say on both sides of the aisle. That's why early on people were saying, oh, a lot of Bernie supporters were going to vote for Trump. But given his personal misgivings and what's occurred and whatnot, that has accelerated his decline. I do think, though, you look at demographics, you look at other things in terms of Arizona, Texas, Georgia, and whatnot, the Republican Party has a major, major problem with African Americans and Hispanics, and it could be the end of it.
I want to get to another angle on the final weeks of this campaign, and it's something that Saturday Night Live touched on as they did their usual run-through over the weekend, and it's another part of the sketch that we saw as the cold open that hit on one of the bigger topics as we're approaching Election Day.
Will you accept the results of the election?
I will look at it at the time because, frankly, this whole thing is rigged.
Donald, listen, I'm trying to help you, buddy, so repeat after me. I, Donald Trump.
I, the best ever Donald Trump.
Promise to accept.
Promise to accept.
The results of this election.
The results of this election, if I win. Got you, loser, trademark.
Now that's funny, but that's actually pretty on the mark about what Trump said at the final debate about accepting the results of the election.
I want to ask you here on the stage tonight, do you make the same commitment that you will absolutely, sir, that you will absolutely accept the result of this election?
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time. What I've seen is so bad.
Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
Well,
okay?
Chris, let me respond to that because that's horrifying.
And we'll cut Hillary off there because that comment by Trump has people worried, especially as Trump is marshaling his supporters to monitor the election in particular areas.
We're going to watch Pennsylvania. Go down to certain areas and watch and study and make sure other people don't come in and vote 5 times. It's the only way we can lose, in my opinion, I really mean this, Pennsylvania, is if cheating goes on.
So 2 issues here. One is questioning the legitimacy of the election. The other is putting people out and having them watch what's happening in particular polling places.
Which is dangerous. The premise is dangerous.
Why?
Well, this country has a historical issue of minorities have been turned away from the ballot box. And so let's say you have, and this has actually happened in city after state, if you have a police officer that's off duty and simply waves their badge. You don't have a right to do that, but what Mr. Trump just said scares me.
And he's as well it should, and we've seen some aspects of voter intimidation at various polling places in previous cycles, but the questioning the legitimacy of the election, that's got a lot of people very alarmed and have been ever since the final debate, and some people don't quite get it, Giancarlo, why that might be problematic. Well, if he doesn't want to answer now, he'll wait until he finds out what the final results are.
I mean, much has been made about this issue, and on the surface, it is cause for concern on one level, but as a practical matter, I mean, what's going to happen? So let's say Donald Trump were to dispute the results of the election. Is the 3rd Infantry going to take over 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? I mean, what happens?
No, but
nothing.
It delegitimizes Hillary Clinton.
I'm not sure. Hillary before she even walks in the door. And that's the
I would argue that and I am not in any way defending Donald Trump's comments. If anything, I'm trying to say I think this is added to the list of bloviations of his throughout this entire campaign. I don't think people have cause to be concerned about this, right? George W. Bush was delegitimized when he became president because many Americans refused to believe that he was an authentic leader of the free world. I think that had much more of an impact on his 100 days in office than anything Donald Trump could or would do to Hillary Clinton.
But that was one state that fell within a few hundred votes of being completely tied, and so there's a dispute over the one state.
There's no election that gets settled by the Supreme Court until December. I mean, this is going to get settled as soon as they call some of these East Coast states.
This is my point. I think that was much more of a threat to the democracy than any crazy statements that Trump chooses to make after the
decisive victory, and he still feeds his right-wing fringe with this stuff. It's problematic.
But John, if it's an 8+ point blowout, what is he going to say? Right? That is if it's a very close election, and we're talking about Florida level recount. Okay, then maybe there's cause for some to say there was shenanigans, chicanery, whatever at the voting booth. But if the margin is wide enough, he's going to look foolish.
Even if foolish. I got to run to a break. Even if it is a blowout, let's say it is an 8-point win for Hillary Clinton. Clinton, and he's claiming that the whole thing was rigged against him. Is that still dangerous? Is that still problematic?
I think it is because it delegitimizes Hillary before she walks in the door. The same way they talked about Obama being a one-term president before he got in there, and we have to spend the next 4 years just doing that. It's not good for the country and for the future. And unfortunately, we've had so much division, so much dysfunction, gridlock, that, I mean, nothing's going to change, and ultimately that's a problem.
I got to take a break, unfortunately. We're going to shift in our next segment from the White House to the races for Congress. Democrats are smelling blood in the water, and they think the Senate and perhaps even the House could be in play. But is Trump actually helping to make that happen? He continues to split the GOP as Democrats rally. That's next when we come back.